Here's everything you might have missed in the Eternals trailer. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is about to get a whole lot weirder. While the inexorable Marvel PR machine is ramping up towards Loki's arrival on Disney Plus next month, on Monday morning they pulled a move worthy of the God of Mischief himself by hitting us with a surprise trailer and poster for the Eternals. Directed by newly minted Oscar winner Chloe Zhao, Eternals has a scope nearly as epic as its cast, spanning centuries across this universe. The trailer gives us our best look at these immortal heroes, some clues as to what they've been up to and what they might be doing in this movie, as well as questions galore. And there are plenty of Easter eggs and subtle references to the comics in this trailer to dissect, and while we will be speculating about what's to come in this film, if we're right about any of this, that could be considered a spoiler. So if you're worried about that sort of thing for any reason at all, take this chance to leave now before you wind up saying something deeply embarrassing in the comments below.
I could lead them.
Alright, let's get into it, shall we? Now the biggest question on many fans' minds, even after watching this trailer, is who are the Eternals and where have they been? While I have an episode of Explainiac that delves into their backstory, which I will link to in the description below, here's the short version. Created by Jack Kirby in 1976, the Eternals are a group of immortal, superpowered people created by the Celestials, these massive godlike beings imbued with terrible cosmic power, who we first glimpsed in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. The last known Celestial in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was Ego, Peter Quill's father, who was defeated in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 after revealing himself to be the world's worst dad, who's also the worst world. He's a living planet. In the comics, the Eternals were one of 3 races created by the Celestials on planet Earth. They also forged the Deviants, who are these gross, warlike monster people, and humans, who, as we well know, are plenty warlike in their own right. According to the press release for this movie, we can expect those pesky Deviants to be what ultimately draws our heroes out of hiding. Marvel Studios' Eternals welcomes an exciting new team of superheroes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The epic story, spanning thousands of years, features a group of immortal heroes forced out of the shadows to reunite against mankind's oldest enemy, the Deviants. As we see in the opening shots of the trailer, the Eternals, as their name suggests, have been around for quite some time. While Skeeter Davis's Why Does the Sun Go On plays in the background, we see a group of ancient hunter-gatherers and fishermen standing in awe before the Eternal spaceship which uncloaks in front of them. Meanwhile, Gemma Chan as Cersei and Richard Madden as Icarus look on and admire the beauty before them. Next up, we see several brief shots aboard the ship. Salma Hayek as Ajak, the group's leader, walking down a hallway. Angelina Jolie as the warrior Thena, who's seemingly using her ability to transmute matter to make this elaborate cosmic design behind her. Ajak in Phastos' workshop. Brian Tyree Henry as Phastos, the group's inventor and weaponsmith, making an intricate golden device that kind of looks like an orrery, a model of the solar system, but vertical. And behind him is the eternally youthful trickster Pixie, played by Leah McHugh, who's just lounging about in the background. After that, we see how the Eternals have both been a part of society, but also been apart from society. In voiceover, Ajak explains, "We have watched and guided, we have helped them progress and seen them accomplish wonders. Throughout the years, we have never interfered until now." Yeah, why until now? While the synopsis suggests that the return of the Deviants is ultimately what spurs the Eternals to intervene, many folks out there are wondering, why didn't they do anything to stop terrible tragedies like the Holocaust or Thanos snapping half the universe out of existence? What exactly is so bad about the Deviants that would cause them to be the final and only reason the Eternals would actually hop to it? Well, my best guess is that their immortal lifespan gives the Eternals a warped view of history. Maybe they didn't feel like they needed to tip the scales of fate because it would all come out in the wash. They don't need to guarantee an outcome one way or another, kind of like the Watcher, but they're living among us. Regardless, I'm sure that will come up at some point in the movie, so I digress. During this sequence, we see Cersei walking through a field as ancient people harvest crops, Cersei using her powers to make water to help irrigate said field, Icarus watching a young village girl braid Cersei's hair, they give someone a nice-ass blue and gold dagger, Thena shows a bunch of curtains who's boss while demonstrating her sweet combat skills with her trusty spear from the comics, and we see a bunch of villagers kneeling before a group of the Eternals, Makari, Thena, Gilgamesh, Icarus, and Kingo, standing in front of the Ishtar Gate of Babylon, which places this sometime around 575 BCE. As this scene pans out, Ajak mentions accomplishing wonders, revealing the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It's also fitting that these godlike beings have names that seem ripped straight out of mythology as well. You have Gilgamesh, the subject of a Babylonian epic poem straight out of Mesopotamian mythology. Thena is basically Athena from Greek mythology. Icarus is going to fly too close to the sun at some point in this movie, I'm guessing, so on and so forth. It also raises other questions, considering that we know that things like Norse mythology are real in the MCU, because you have characters like Thor and Loki and the rest of the Asgardians, and we have confirmation that Russell Crowe will be playing the Greek god Zeus in Thor: Love and Thunder. So what's real? What was put here by the Celestials? That is a question for another video, but fascinating food for thought. Next, we see Lauren Ridloff as Makkari speed-reading a book inside her messy treasure trove of a room aboard the Eternal ship. She's hoarding everything from a medieval suit of armor, to a statue of Anubis holding an ankh, to an Aquila from ancient Rome, a hamburger, a PlayStation VR headset, a royal crown, a Tolkien book, and a statue of a warrior nestling a copy of Hunter S. Thompson's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Now, this appears to be the same workshop that Phastos and Pixie were in earlier in the trailer, suggesting that the Eternals have gone their own separate ways, and Makkari is just straight chilling on the ship in the meantime. Now, I'm sure there are other goodies and rare antiquities in the background here, so put your art history degree to good use and let us know what you spot in the comments below. Now, we see Cersei walking in ancient Babylon one moment, and in London's Piccadilly Circus the next, suggesting just how long they've been here. As Ajax says we never interfered, we see a brief shot of what appears to be Spanish conquistadors in the woods slaughtering indigenous Mesoamerican people, maybe Incan due to their connection to the Eternals in the comics, or maybe Aztecs or Mayans as well, it's unclear. Now, this is followed by even more chaos as the conquistadors slaughter people in the cities, and it all sounds pretty bleak until we get later in the trailer moments like Makkari using her super speed to rescue an Incan child from being crushed by debris. Now, this shot is also fascinating because if you look at that column closely, its design resembles the same markings you would find on the Celestials and the Eternals' armor that we've seen previously, and it suggests they maybe assisted or helped guide these ancient Mesoamerican empires. Also in the trailer, Pixie looks on in sorrow and defeat as a volcano erupts in the background. We see a much grander glimpse of said volcano erupting later in the trailer, and while it might be tempting to try and connect this to Loki, which teased the destruction of Pompeii in a recent teaser trailer, this is more than likely a connection to the Great Cataclysm from the comics. So, in ancient times, the deviants ran rampant. They used advanced tech to live like kings at the expense of humans until, as we learn in Eternals #2, their arrogance went too far. They attacked a celestial ship, and those godlike beings retaliated by destroying the Deviants' kingdom, causing the continent of Lemuria and the kingdom of Atlantis to sink into the ocean. Atlantis has been teased several times in the Marvel Cinematic Universe thus far, referenced briefly in Iron Man 2 as a location that S.H.I.E.L.D. was actively monitoring. There's a ship in Captain America the Winter Soldier called the Lemurian Star. It's directly mentioned in Ye Who Enter Here, an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's alluded to in Avengers Endgame as a source of underwater earthquakes off the coast of Wakanda. While we've yet to see Namor the Submariner in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and his usage rights are complicated to say the least, perhaps this is a glimpse at how one of the mightiest empires in the Marvel Universe came into existence, and evidence of the Deviants' wrongdoing, their ancient conflict with the Celestials and the Eternals dating back centuries. Also in this trailer, we see Ajax comforting Phastos in modern day, presumably after witnessing something terrible like a deviant attack. We see Droog, played by Barry Keoghan, emerging from a barn in front of a large group of blue and white clad villagers, who he's presumably mind controlling given his abilities. Now, we first caught a glimpse of these villagers back in Marvel's recent Marvel Studios Celebrates the Movies trailer, and it just seems like bad news bears all around. We see Don Lee's Gilgamesh wistfully holding hands with someone, I'm guessing Thena, and I'm also guessing that something happens between them because in the first look at the film, it appeared as though those two are squaring off in righteous combat. Now, in the comics, Thena winds up in a relationship with the deviant warlord known as Crow, someone who's able to shapeshift. So perhaps Crow could be infiltrating the Eternals here and pretending to be Gilgamesh, or maybe Marvel is teeing up yet another love triangle in this movie. After all, Crow and Thena's love affair in the comics began back in Babylon, the culture with which Gilgamesh is most heavily associated, so our eyebrows are fully raised. Can't get any higher. Now, if you look in the background of this scene, you can see a mysterious red and black figure floating behind them, and that can mean only one thing. Mephisto! I'm kidding, it looks like a celestial or like a deviant or someone being held in stasis somehow. Regardless, it seems important and this moment seems extra charged, but I digress. At one point, we see the Eternals come together to form a uni-mind. It's an ability they possess where they can enter a trance-like state, meld their consciousnesses together, and achieve a power greater than any of them is capable of by themselves. Now, we saw a glimpse of this previously during that Marvel Loves the Movies trailer, but here we see Cersei, Droog, and Makkari begin the process of forming said uni-mind. After that, we come back to the other love triangle I mentioned. While Ikaris and Cersei have been lovers for thousands of years, we know they ultimately drift apart because there's a hot new man about town. Dane Whitman, played by Ikaris' half-brother from another TV show's mother, Kit Harington, and he appears in a blink and you'll miss it moment. In the comics, Dane Whitman goes on to become the heroic character Black Knight, who also becomes a member of the Avengers, but I kinda doubt we'll see him suit up in this movie until like the post-credit scene at the absolute earliest, because it's the Eternals, not Black Knight and buds. Moving on, we see a shot of someone converting a tree into a different type of matter, or maybe turning it invisible, it's kind of unclear. That's followed by Kumail Nanjiani as Kingo rocking a Bollywood dance routine, and that dance scene is immediately followed by Kingo rocking a deviant monster's world by blasting it with energy in that forest village from earlier in the trailer. Now, the villagers are seemingly under Droog's command. Their eyes glow and they lift their rifles in unison, presumably towards the rest of the Eternals, because Droog apparently wants nothing to do with them. Some shit went down, there's beef, and it must be squashed. After that, we see Pixie doing karaoke on Kingo's private jet while the other Eternals grab some shut-eye in the background. And there's also what appears to be Captain America's USO prop shield from the first Avenger mounted on the wall behind them, so maybe Kingo's just a big fan. After that, we see Cersei and Dane look on as an ominous storm cloud gathers over a park in England, heralding the arrival of something terrible, possibly a Celestial or maybe the Deviants, it's unclear. After that, we get an awesome group shot of the entire team in their costumes, squaring off with what I have to assume is at least one of the Deviants, maybe more, who knows. The trailer ends on a delightful note with the gang having a feast prepared by Gilgamesh. Seated next to Kingo is his resident videographer who we glimpsed previously in that first look at Eternals in the Marvel Loves the Movies trailer. Pixie then asks the group who they think will lead the Avengers now that Iron Man and Captain Rogers are gone. Icarus suggests that he could lead the Avengers, only to get absolutely clowned on by everybody in the room, which, you love to see it. We all know what happened the last time Robb Stark tried to lead. Didn't end well. Anyway, moving on. What's more fascinating about this moment, though, is that it establishes the Eternals are keenly aware of Earth's mightiest heroes, even though they did not lift a superpowered finger to help during the Chitauri invasion of New York, when Ultron attacked Sokovia, or during the events of Infinity War and Endgame, at least not that we know of. But don't worry, I'm sure there's a great reason for this, which we'll learn all about come November 5th, 2021, when Eternals finally hits theaters. Anyway, folks, that is everything we spotted in the Eternals trailer. We'll keep you up to date on all things Eternals and MCU over on Nerdist.com, but in the meantime, tell us, what did you think of this trailer? Did you spot anything that we missed? Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.